For months, the Indiana Fever story has seemed incredibly simple. Caitlin Clark arrived as the most anticipated player women's basketball has seen in decades. She shattered attendance records before she even played a professional game. Television ratings exploded wherever she went. Opposing arenas started selling out weeks in advance. Every move she made became a national headline. To the outside world, it looked obvious. The Fever had found their franchise cornerstone, the player every decision should revolve around for the next decade. But what if the organization itself isn't operating that way? What if the biggest story surrounding Indiana isn't about Caitlin Clark's rise at all, but about the decisions being made around her? And what if one incredible shot this week accidentally exposed a much larger problem that has been hiding in plain sight all season? On Monday night, basketball fans witnessed another unforgettable Caitlin Clark moment. With Indiana trailing in the closing seconds, the pressure was enormous. The game was slipping away, the season's momentum was hanging in the balance, and the Fever desperately needed someone to deliver. What happened next instantly became one of the most talked about highlights of the year. Clark found space, rose from deep beyond the arc, and buried a shot that sent fans into a frenzy. Social media erupted. Sports shows replayed it non-stop, teammates celebrated, analysts praised her ability to perform under pressure. For most viewers, it looked like another example of a superstar doing superstar things, another reminder that when the lights are brightest, Caitlin Clark is exactly who you want holding the basketball. But as the excitement from the victory began to fade, something unusual happened. Instead of ending the conversation, the shot actually started a much bigger one. Fans began looking beyond the highlight itself and focusing on everything that led up to it. They started asking why the Fever needed a chaotic, improvised sequence just to get the ball into the hands of their biggest star. They started examining comments from players and coaches. They started revisiting decisions made months earlier by the front office, and suddenly, what appeared to be a simple game-winning shot transformed into something much more controversial, because the deeper people looked, the more they began wondering whether Indiana's priorities truly match what everyone else sees. That question has only grown louder in recent days, not because of a single play, not because of one player, and not because of one coach. The discussion has expanded into something much larger, involving roster construction, contract decisions, offensive philosophy, and the people responsible for shaping the future of this franchise. Some fans believe the Fever are maximizing the greatest young talent in basketball. Others believe the organization is making things far more complicated than they need to be. And while opinions continue to vary, one thing is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Organizations reveal what they value through actions, not words. Press conferences can say one thing, interviews can say another, but contracts, personnel decisions, coaching hires, and late-game strategies often tell the real story. That's why this conversation matters, because hidden beneath one of the biggest highlights of the season is a question that could define the future of the Indiana Fever. A question involving Kelly Krauskopf's front office, the largest contract on the roster, and the way this organization has chosen to build around a player many already consider the face of the entire league. The answers aren't found in a single box score or a single post-game interview. They're buried in a series of decisions stretching back months, decisions that many fans are only now starting to connect. And once those pieces are put together, the picture that emerges becomes impossible to ignore, because what happened on Monday night may not have simply won Indiana a basketball game. It may have revealed something the franchise never intended the public to notice. To understand why so many fans are suddenly questioning Indiana's direction, you have to go back several months before that game-winning shot ever happened, long before the celebrations, the viral clips, and the debates dominating social media. The Fever front office made a decision that quietly sent a message about how they viewed their roster. At the time, most people barely noticed. The headlines came and went, analysts discussed it for a day or two before moving on. But looking back now, many fans believe that decision may have revealed more about the organization's priorities than any press conference ever could, because when Indiana entered one of the most important off-seasons in franchise history, the first major question wasn't who they would build around. It was who they considered most important to keep. The answer surprised a lot of people. In early April, Indiana officially secured Kelsey Mitchell on a massive one-year supermax contract worth approximately $1.4 million under the league's new financial structure. It wasn't just another routine signing, it immediately became one of the largest contracts in the entire WNBA. The organization didn't hide how much the move mattered to them either. Team executives publicly described Mitchell's return as their highest off-season priority. Those words caught attention because they weren't coming from fans or media members trying to create Controversy, they were coming directly from the organization itself, and once those comments became public, some Fever supporters started asking a simple question: if Caitlin Clark is the player transforming the franchise, why wasn't she the center of that conversation? Now, before anyone misunderstands the point, it's important to acknowledge something. Kelsey Mitchell earned her contract. She wasn't handed anything. For years, she carried enormous offensive responsibility for Indiana during some very difficult seasons. She developed into one of the league's most dangerous scorers, and consistently produced at a high level even when the roster around her struggled. Last season, she played some of the best basketball of her career and helped keep Indiana competitive through injuries and adversity. There are very few serious basketball observers who would argue she didn't deserve to be paid. That's not where the controversy comes from. The controversy comes from what that contract seemed to symbolize. Because in professional sports, fans don't just analyze the money, they analyze the message behind the money. They look at who organizations prioritize, they look at who receives public praise, they look at who the franchise appears determined to protect and build around. Fair or unfair, those perceptions matter, and when Fever executives openly described Mitchell as their top priority, many supporters couldn't help comparing that statement to the reality unfolding around Caitlin Clark. Here was a player driving record attendance, record ratings, and unprecedented national attention toward the franchise, yet, somehow, the conversation surrounding organizational priorities seemed more complicated than many expected. That's when the debate really began. Some fans argued the situation was being blown completely out of proportion. They pointed out that retaining elite talent is exactly what successful organizations are supposed to do. Others saw something deeper. They believed the language used by the front office reflected a broader philosophy that was still influencing how the team operated on the court. The contract itself wasn't the issue. The issue was what fans believed it represented. Was Indiana simply rewarding a veteran star who had earned her place in franchise history, or was the organization sending a subtle signal about how it viewed the balance of power within the roster? Suddenly, what looked like a straightforward business decision became the foundation of a much larger conversation. And the timing couldn't have been more significant, because while those debates simmered in the background, the regular season continued. Games were played, wins and losses accumulated. The Fever showed flashes of brilliance, while still struggling with consistency. For a while, the contract discussion faded into the background. Then Monday night happened. One game, one possession, one shot, and all of those questions that seemed dormant suddenly came roaring back louder than ever, because once fans started examining how that game-winning moment actually unfolded, they discovered something that made the entire conversation far more complicated than a contract negotiation. They found themselves looking directly at the decisions being made when the game was on the line. If the contract decision planted the seed of doubt, Monday night's game is what made that doubt explode into a full-blown conversation, because everything about the Fever's dramatic victory should have been simple. A superstar hit a clutch shot. The team escaped with a desperately needed win, fans celebrated and moved on. That's how these moments are supposed to work. Instead, the biggest highlight of the week somehow became the center of a controversy that nobody saw coming, and the reason wasn't the shot itself, it was everything surrounding it. The situation unfolded with Indiana trailing late and the pressure mounting by the second. The game was hanging in the balance. The Fever needed a basket. Everyone in the arena knew exactly who the most dangerous offensive player on the floor was. Everyone watching at home knew it too. Caitlin Clark had already proven countless times that she could deliver in big moments, yet when the final possession began, what happened next immediately caught people's attention. The ball was inbound, players started moving, the defense reacted, and suddenly the possession appeared to break away from its original structure. Then, in a split second, everything changed. The ball found its way to Clark deep beyond a three-point line. She rose up from a distance most players wouldn't even consider and drilled the shot that sent Fever fans into celebration mode. At first, that should have been the end of the story. It was the kind of shot that defines careers, the kind of shot kids replay in their driveways, the kind of shot sports networks show for days. But almost immediately, another discussion began taking shape. Fans started rewatching the possession, analysts started slowing down the film, social media users started asking the same question over and over again: was that actually the play Indiana intended to run? The more people watched, the more uncertain they became. Instead of seeing a perfectly executed game-winning design, some viewers believed they were watching a possession that only succeeded because players adapted in the moment. Then came the post-game comments, and that's when things became even more interesting. Various explanations emerged regarding what exactly happened during that final possession. Some comments suggested the original objective may have been different than what fans ultimately witnessed. Other explanations emphasized that the play unfolded exactly as intended. The result was confusion. Instead of providing clarity, the conversation became even more